it's February. And while just a few days ago I was getting spring fever, you can see the garden is still asleep. But there is something I can do. We can start some seeds for this year's garden. So that's what I'm going to do today. Welcome back to the 8th concession, our property here in Southern Ontario, Zone 5B. My name is Natalie. Well, you know, it was getting exciting there for a while when we had above freezing temperatures and the ground was soft, and I thought, oh, maybe I could, you know, put some of those really early spring crops in, but no. Winter came back with a vengeance. It's cold, it's snowy, everything's frozen again, which it should be in February. But it does mean that the gardening season seems a lot farther away, especially when other people on other channels have, you know, ground they can work and stuff they can put in. But here, we have to just dream about the garden, but we can at least feel like we're doing something to start. So I have some failures today and then hopefully some successes, but I'm going to start my onions, my leeks, and my cabbages. And I want to show you just how easy it is to start things like onions from seed. Now, originally, when I was still in the city, I would buy onion sets to start my onions. These look like tiny little onions, and in fact, that's what they are. They're onions that have started to grow, and then the growing has stopped. And they're very easy, and I still recommend them. They're lots of fun. They're easy to grow. However, there are a couple of problems with them. Because the onion has started to grow and then it stops again, sometimes the onion thinks it's in its second year. And in the second year of an onion's life, it doesn't create the bulb. It actually goes to flower to set seeds. That's the life cycle of an onion. So sometimes you would lose a lot of them because they thought it's our second year of growing, we better set flowers and make some seeds instead of growing a nice big bulb. So it was kind of hit or miss with them. The other problem is you're limited to the types of sets that you can buy in the store, and big commercial growers are going to pick the most common variety. So if you want something a little bit different, or if you want to try something that's a little sweeter or perhaps keeps better, then you don't have a lot of choice with sets. You have a lot more choice with seeds. Some people are a little bit nervous about growing onions from seed. They think it's perhaps difficult, but it truly isn't. I'll show you the steps that I use, and even some years when my onions that I've started were a little bit spindly when I put them outside in the garden, they took off and gave me a huge onion crop to harvest. And you know, plants want to grow. So if they want to grow, let's plant them. First, I mentioned that I had a gardening failure, as we all do. That's part of the, you know, the journey of gardening. Some things work, some things don't. Those of you who've been following know that I had bought some tree seeds a year and a half ago and put them in the fridge to stratify, which means to keep them cold and moist for a while to mimic going through winter, and then promptly forgot about them. When I pulled them out, at first I was sure they were all dead, but then some looked like they had roots, and I thought I would give them a try and plant the ones that looked like perhaps the seeds had sprouted. So I did, but it has not been a success. So the ones that I did see with roots, perhaps the roots had already dried up. They were too old. The only 3 that are still alive, and that's pretty tenuous, are these 3 balsam firs. You can see that they still have their little seed head on. They're still green, but they're not really doing much. Still, I'm going to keep watering them and see if I can at least get 3 trees out of my 4 packs of seeds. The dogwoods, which seem to have the best chance for growth, they looked almost like a bean sprout. They still looked, you know, firm. They still looked plump and healthy. They shriveled up and died, and the other ones just didn't come up. So what I'm going to do today, I'm going to put these back upstairs, give them a good watering, and then I'm just going to repurpose the cups that I had used that already have soil in them, that I had put the plants, the tree seeds in, because there's still perfectly good soil. Nothing has been done to it. I'm going to give it a good watering, and I'm going to use these to start my onions because they have a nice deep pot for long onion roots, and it's just that much less work for me. But it was disappointing, but I knew it was a long shot when I put those seeds in there. Still, I might get 3 trees out of it. So the first thing I'm going to do is give these a good watering to really re-moisten that soil. And then I'm going to add some fresh potting soil on top. The next thing I'm going to do is make my labels. Now, I like to use wood. These are just popsicle sticks from the dollar store. I try to keep as much plastic out of my garden as I can, so I use these, but the problem with them is the very reason they're good for the environment, that they break down. But unfortunately, sometimes they break down before I'm finished using them. So I'm going to write the variety on them, and then I'm actually going to cover them with some clear nail polish, and let that dry, just so when I stick them in, the popsicle stick is going to last a little longer in the ground, maybe even long enough that I can transfer them into the garden when I transplant the plants. So that's what I'm going to do next. So some of my onions are the Dutch onions. I grew them from sets originally, and then last year I took 3 that had sprouted in my basement over the winter and planted them strictly for seed, because as I said, in their second year they go to seed, and I got lots and lots of beautiful onion seeds. So I want to plant some of my own, but then I still have some seeds left over that I bought. And that's these, which I think are the same variety, but I had to actually get these from a supplier in Europe. It was very difficult to find the Stuttgarter Riesen onions in North America. So I have these seeds still left over, so I'm going to plant some of these. I'll kind of compare them. They should be exactly the same. They kind of grow a bit flat, but I find these are the absolute best for storage for me, and I love them. So I'm going to do some from those seeds and some from my own seeds. I'm just going to let them dry over here. And now I'm just going to top up my little planters here with some more soil. Oh, mess already. It didn't take me long. So with this fresh potting soil here, I'm just going to moisten it. It's a little bit dry. When you're starting seeds, you want to make sure that your soil is moist. And it's easier to do it first rather than after you plant the seeds. So I'm going to give it a good stir here. See if I need to add more. You want it wet so that when you hold it, it holds its shape and it feels wet to the touch, but not so much water that it's dripping out. This seems just about perfect. So I'm going to add this to the top of my cups to give the onion, leek, and here I go again, and cabbage seeds some fresh potting soil to start in. Now, onion seeds don't tend to stay good as long as some other seeds for some strange reason. So I like to try and use mine up. It will be interesting to see whether last year's seeds, they're only 1 year old, versus the fresh seeds, which does better. So I'm going to put several in each pot, because when I transplant them out, you know, if you sometimes buy them in the garden center as started sprouts, They're very close together in the pot. It doesn't matter. Onions don't mind to be crowded, especially to start. So I'm going to put maybe 20 in each cup and let them grow up together. And then when I put them out in the garden, I'll separate them out so they can grow a nice big bulb. But I'm going to start with my seeds. I think I'll start on this end. I have found for my family, when I used to plant about 100 large onions, that would get me through most of the winter if they kept well, unless I lost a lot to rot. So I like to have a bit more than that. I'd say 150 or so large onions for a year. Now, if you use onions in almost every meal, you might want more than that. If you don't use them as often, I'd say I use onions for 4 meals a week, you know, as part of the cooking. So maybe you can try and gauge how many you might need. I always overplant, but then I do have grown children who have small gardens at their houses, and so I keep giving them produce. I like to share. So I'll be planting, the point of that is I'll be planting a lot more than 150 if I do 20 per pot, because that would be 120 of my own and then 120 of the older seed. I do want to try and use it up, maybe not this year. I think it's good for 2 to 3 years. So this year I'll probably use about half of what's left, and then next year I'll finish them off. But for now, I'm going to see how the ones do that I grew from seed. I'm going to put them in here, about 20. I'm just going to lay them on top of the soil. They're hard to see because they are black, but as I'm not too concerned about how many, it doesn't matter that I can't see them well. I'm just going to sort of guess as to how many I put on there. I am still spreading them out a bit to give them all some room to grow. That's about 20. Wow, that hasn't even made a dent in the amount of onion seeds I have. Now on to the packaged onion seeds that I got last year for the next 6 cups. Looks like I still have plenty of these seeds too. Now the last 2 I'm going to do with leeks, the last 2 rows. And these seeds look really similar, so I'm going to sow them the same way with all their friends. Now the last step is really easy. We're going to cover the seeds just with some loose topsoil. This I've left a little drier, only so it goes on easier. We're going to crumble it over with a light layer. You don't need too much soil over top of onion or leek seeds. So just a nice sprinkle. Oh, goodness, the mess I make. And give that topsoil a little spray, just because I didn't wet it as much as the others. I am going to put a humidity dome over top. I have to push these down a little more. It won't touch the bottom, but it will help keep the top of them from drying out too quickly. Now in 5 to 10 days, they should sprout. They don't need light until they do sprout, and then I will have them under my lamps, but I will put them on my heat mat. Okay, so the last thing I'm going to plant today are my cabbages. Now I'm going to use these pre-formed little trays. They're not my absolute favorite. I think they're compressed cardboard. They are biodegradable, which is great. But I do find sometimes if the plants are in them for a long, long time, they can go a little moldy.
I had these laying around. I didn't buy them this year. But because these are cabbages and they're going to go into the ground fairly early, the plants aren't going to be in here long enough to worry about it. I wouldn't put peppers in here or even tomatoes, which I grow indoors a lot longer. I'll probably use paper cups for them. But this should work fine for the cabbages. They won't be in there that long. I've filled them with soil already because I made a mess as usual. And it's moistened. So these seeds are already a couple of years old. So I'm actually going to put 2 in per cell just in case the germination rate has gone down. And I have tons anyway. My goodness. So just gonna put them on top.
There you go. For me, this is the official start of the 2024 gardening season, and it feels great. So I hope this gives you the confidence to try growing onion from seed. I'll show you as we go along when they sprout, hopefully in 5 to 10 days. Don't be afraid to give it a try. And I hope you're looking forward to the new gardening season as much as I am. For me, it's another month and a half or so away, but in the meantime, I'm gonna watch some little plants sprout, and that will just have to hold me over. Bye for now.